Hey guys, welcome back to Overtime. I'm Makayla Furrey, and on today's episode, we were joined with NFL Hall of Famer Kurt Warner. He shares with us his journey from high school to his current position in the broadcasting booth for NFL Network. His story is an amazing one that anyone can find inspiration from. We hope you enjoy it as much as we did.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Game. My name is Connor Durkin, and once again, alongside me is Makayla Furrey. Today, we are very excited to have former Super Bowl champion, MVP, and Hall of Famer Kurt Warner to join us to discuss his football career and beyond. So without further ado, Kurt, thank you for joining us today, and how are you today?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm doing great, amidst all the craziness of life and the pandemic and everything else that comes with it. Overall, I'm doing pretty good. Trying to find new ways of challenging myself and doing the things that I love to do, whether that be coaching or the work that I'm doing, or just diving into some new things that maybe I didn't really think about much before the pandemic. But overall, life is good, and we're moving forward.
That's amazing. So, Kurt, to start us off, do you mind taking us back to Cedar Rapids in 1989? What would Kurt Warner have been doing? And what would he have thought about his future? Like, would you have ever imagined you would have gotten to where you are today?
Well, I tell you, like most of us, I'm sure, young men and women your age, you've got your dreams and you believe that you're going to accomplish your dreams. So back in '89, I was graduating from high school, and I believed that one day I would play professional football. I don't know how likely it was or if anybody else believed it, but I surely believed it. And, at that time, unfortunately for me, I didn't have any scholarship offers. I didn't have a lot of opportunities. But that didn't seem to diminish what I believed I could accomplish. And I think to me, that's what it's all about. That's what dreams are all about. That's what being young is all about, is just saying, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to find a way to do it. And that was really just my mindset. The biggest thing for me, not just in '89, but really for the bulk of my career, or at least until I got to the NFL, it was more about finding an opportunity than anything. I never really had the thought or belief that I couldn't, play, or I couldn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. The hardest thing for me became finding the opportunity to actually prove it to people, or to show people. And so it started, with college. I was very fortunate late in the game to get a partial scholarship from a small school in Iowa. And once again, my mindset simply became, it doesn't matter where I play or whether I have a scholarship. As long as I'm playing, I can prove to people that I belong, and then I can take my dream to the next level. And so that's really where I was in '89, full belief that, and again, the belief and the dream, I don't really know if I thought about all the things that would come with it. My dream was simply just to play in the NFL and to go to Super Bowls and try to win Super Bowls. You never think of, the MVPs and the Hall of Fames and all of that stuff was not even really a part of my dream. It was just, I want to get there and play on Sunday afternoons, do what I love doing. And then most importantly, I wanted to play in Super Bowls and win Super Bowls like the guys that I watched play and that I idolized a little bit.
Yeah, obviously confidence and just believing in yourself is the first step to getting those goals. I know everyone talks about that period of your life when you're working in a grocery store. Tell me about how that impacted your career in the long run.
Well, the thing is that, there's certain people in life, whatever the field or direction they have, that, where everything just works out perfectly for them. But those people are rare, the people that get the scholarship to the best school and they get drafted number one and then have a great career and find themselves in a hall. That's a rare thing. We see it a little bit here and there in sports, but when you think about the big picture of life, most people have their grocery store moment or their grocery store period where, man, they're chasing something and it just doesn't go how they want it to go. And, they had no control over it, and it just kind of spiraled in a certain direction. And you've got to find, something else to do while you're, working towards your dream. And, I said in my Hall of Fame speech, I said, sometimes you got to do what you got to do until you get to do what you were born to do. And that's really how I felt about that period of time, is that And this is what I got to do right now. There's no other opportunities. There's nowhere else for me to go. But this doesn't mean my dream's stopping. This just means this is where I'm at right now, and this is what I have to do. And so you say, how does it shape you? I think every experience we have shapes us in some way, shape, or form. I think it shaped and helped me to see kind of the perspective on how much I love the game and why I played the game, what I was missing when it wasn't really a part of my life. And then there's always things that, I remember when I started working in a grocery store. So actually what happened was, I was in Green Bay with a tryout with Green Bay. I was in training camp with Green Bay, so I'm that close to accomplishing my dream. And I go from getting cut by Green Bay to working in a grocery store. So I go from this close to about as far away from my dream as I could possibly be. And, there's a period of time where you kind of have your pity party and you're like, oh my gosh, why me? How do I find myself here? Why do I have to work in a grocery store? And then the other part going, how is this ever going to help me get back to the NFL? What could possibly happen here in a grocery store that could help me, moving forward? And, if I was able to accomplish my dream, or even if I went in a different direction, what can I learn and how can I grow in this, situation? And, at first, I didn't really know the answer to any of that stuff. But I don't know if you guys have ever worked in a grocery store, but so I stocked shelves at night. And so one of our responsibilities in stocking shelves was every night they would give each one of us an aisle. Say, for instance, I had the cereal aisle. And so they would come out with all the stuff that they ordered. They drop all the boxes at the end of the aisle, and your job was to, cut open the boxes and refill all of the shelves. And then at the end of the night, all the shelves wouldn't be completely full. So at the end of the night, what our job was is to face the aisle. And so what that meant was I would have to go, to every product that was in the aisle, and whether the shelf was full or not, I would have to pull the product to the front of the aisle. I'd have to line up the labels so everything looked perfect. So that first person that walked into the store at 5 a.m. the next morning, when they walked down my aisle, it looked like it was just completely full. Now, I always tell people that because I know, whether it was the guy that was heading off to work and had to run by the store and just grab something, or if it was the mom and her child that, came in at 5 because they, needed something for her kids or whatever, they never noticed what my aisle looked like. They didn't care that it was spaced. They just wanted to know, where's the baby food? Where's the milk at? But I remember telling myself when I was working in that grocery store, I said, at the end of every night, I will have the best faced aisle in this whole store. I am not leaving this store until my aisle is pristine and it looks the best that it can look. No matter whether anybody ever notices or not, that became something that really started to shape my mindset moving forward. That it was what I call a mindset of excellence, that it didn't matter what I was doing and it didn't matter who saw it, who recognized it. My goal was whatever I chose to do, I wanted to be great at. I wanted to be excellent at that thing. And so, when I went into that, situation in the grocery store, I would have told you there's absolutely nothing I'm going to take from this experience that's going to help me moving forward. But once I got there, I came to realize that there was a number of things that would shape me as an individual. But that's probably the biggest thing, is that my mindset completely changed on who I wanted to be and how I wanted to attack every task. And it came from just doing that stupid little facing at the end of every night when I was stocking shelves in a grocery store.
So that is absolutely amazing. I'm just going to straight up tell you that right now. That is awesome that you kept pushing yourself to keep doing that. So with this time and era, I know a bunch of student athletes sometimes give up easily. So do you have any advice that you would like to give to them to keep pushing them?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough thing because, we're all built differently. But once again, I mean, I think, the point that you realize as you go through life, and, unfortunately, when you're your age, you don't think so much about setbacks, or you don't think about, your grocery store moments because you haven't had to go through it yet. When I look back, from my age, I realize how many people could really associate with my story because of the supermarket story because of the things that didn't go my direction, because that's really what life is all about. And most people that make it or accomplish their dreams or exceed expectations are the ones that push through when things aren't going their direction. And that's, I think, the encouragement that I would say is that, trust me, life is going to be full of those things that don't go your direction. And if you decide just to pack up shop and leave, you'll never have a chance. And again, I don't want to say never, because there's those rare instances where it just kind of works out. But for most of us, we'll never be able to accomplish what we want to accomplish, and we'll never get to the point that we can get to, or reach our full potential. If we're willing to shut down as soon as life gets hard. I mean, I've got 7 kids myself, and every one of my kids is different. Um, and I've got some that are disciplined, and when something goes against them, man, they take off running, and they can't wait to meet the challenge. And then I've got other kids that as soon as something bad goes wrong, it's like, oh my gosh, life's over. I'm never going to get what I want. And it's so difficult because they are so different, and you really got to understand. And that's the crazy thing is, like, I've got a son who plays high school football, and he just recently, he's junior, and first quarter of the first game, he broke his leg. And so he wants to play college football. And, he's down and out, and he's, all this stuff is, man, it's never going to work out for me. And it's so funny because I go, dude, do you know my story? And then he's got a brother that plays at Nebraska that was a record-setting high school athlete, got no scholarship offers, walked on at the University of Nebraska, has started for 2 years at the University of Nebraska, just earned a scholarship. I mean, he's got these 2 people right in front of him that didn't write the conventional story, that didn't have the perfect path, but we've both shown him it can be done, and it can be done at the highest level. Yet he can't get his mind off of his one situation and how it's not working in his favor and how nothing's good. And so that's the hard part is, you try to give your kids or those people out there an example to go, it can happen. You just can't give up. You just can't stop moving. You've got to figure out, if my path is going to be different, no problem. How do I make this path, even though it's different than everybody else's, or it's different than how I dreamed it, how do I make this path end up where I want it to be? And that really becomes what life to me is all about, because it's just not going to work out perfectly for all of us, but we still want to try to get to that same destination. And sometimes we gotta shape our own path.
During your time at Northern Iowa, were there any role models, or who were you close with?
Yeah, I mean, there was a number of guys. I think the coolest thing is, when you head off to college, you get a chance to kind of choose your friends and choose the people that you're going to live with and, spend time with. And so I became really close with a number of my roommates, and some played on the team, some didn't. But I mean, the coolest thing is that, I became friends with individuals that continually would encourage me. Right. So when I was in college, not only did I not get a scholarship offer, I ended up sitting on the bench for 4 years in college. That was probably the most difficult period from a football standpoint that I've ever been through, because now I can't even get on the field. I can't even show people and get the opportunity to get out there. And at times I couldn't really figure out why that was. So there were moments of frustrations, moments when I talked about, quitting or transferring. And I'm so grateful for, my teammates and my friends and those people that I lived with, that they were always encouraging me. I was fortunate to be around some people that, were always pushing me and, encouraging me to just, bide your time, put in your work, your opportunity will come. We all know that you can play. And so I think those were the people that I leaned on the most when times got difficult. Now I had, friends from high school, and my parents were great in those times for me. But, I was fortunate that I found some great individuals that really were an encouragement to me when I found myself in some of those difficult situations.
Like you just brought up, you had to wait until you were a senior to get some playing time. What was your mindset going day in and day out when you did get the chance and leading up to when you did?
Well, it was funny. There was a period of time when I was, sitting on the bench where I really felt like I was the most talented, player at the quarterback position in my college. And, so that was a moment of, or a time of frustration where it's like, man, I know I'm more talented than the guy in front of me. Why can't I get on the field and play? And I remember, asking a friend of mine who was a little bit older, had a better relationship with the coaches, if he minded going up and talking to the coaches and just saying, okay, what's Kurt missing? What isn't Kurt doing that's preventing him from being on the football field? And I remember him coming back to me. I'll never forget the conversation. He came back to me and he said, Kurt, they told me the reason that you're not playing is because you're not very good in practice. Now, I don't know if you guys ever saw the rant from Allen Iverson a few years back when he was in the finals and he's like, practice. I mean, we're talking about practice here, like not a game, not the NBA finals. We're talking about practice. And that's exactly how I felt. I'm like, seriously? You guys are not playing me because I'm not good in practice, but every time you see me in a game, I light it up, but I'm not good in practice. And so that was my initial mindset there. And then the more I started to realize and think about it, the more I thought to myself, like, okay, let's say you're playing high school football, right? You get 9 chances every year. In 365 games, you get 9 chances to step on the field and play. In college, maybe you get 11 or 12 chances. In the NFL, you get 16 chances to play under the lights. So in other words, about 95% of the time that we have to make an impression or to show people who we are or what we're going to be or how we're going to handle the different moments in our life, they come in practice. And so basically what they were saying to me is we need to see who you are every day. We need to come to trust you every single day with how you're going to work, how you're going to lead, how you're going to play, what you're going to do when the lights aren't on is the only way we can truly know who you're going to be when the lights get flipped on. And I never really thought of that before. Before to me, it was all about, hey, put the ball in my hands and I'll show you I'm really good at what I do. But what they were saying was, we want to see it every day. We want to know who you are every single day. And that was a lesson that, again, didn't just apply to me on the football field. It applies to everything that I do is I want people to see that I'm different on a daily basis. My kids, right? It's easy to get up on my soapbox and give them a lecture, when I need to tell them something or show them something, right? But that doesn't mean nearly as much if all the other times when I'm not lecturing them, I'm not living by a certain code or I'm not doing the things that I'm lecturing them about. They want to see who I am every single day. So when they start to realize, okay, this is who Dad is, now when he speaks on this topic, we get it. We understand what he's saying and how that pertains to what he's accomplished or what he does on a daily basis. And so I learned that lesson when I was sitting on the bench, how important every day was to leave an impression upon my teammates, the coaches, the people around the organizations, is to really set a standard on a daily basis on who I was going to be. So the amazing thing is, as I go through some of these challenges and trials, every one of them taught me something that would ultimately come to shape who I was. So those 4 years were tough, but it taught me a lot of things and things that would ultimately, I think, help separate me later on. As you mentioned, fortunately, my senior year, I got a chance to play. And then, first game of the year, I separated my throwing shoulder. And once again, I'm the guy that's going, seriously, I finally get a shot. But I was able to work through that and became the player of the year in our conference that year, which led to my opportunity with the Green Bay Packers. So even in my final season, there were some ups and downs, but it just taught me so much about life that, all things aren't going to work out perfectly and our dreams aren't going to always look exactly like we want them to look. But it doesn't mean that we can't achieve what we want to achieve and we can't accomplish what we want to accomplish. And I think I was fortunate to learn some of that stuff early on, and it would help drive me through some of the things I would face later in life.
That is amazing. Like, so good. I'm like, that's awesome. So we ask this question a lot, and we want to know, a practice, a game, whatever, what was your favorite college memory that you have?
My favorite college memory? That's a good question. Well, here's the thing, is that in college is where I met my wife. And so, I don't know if, for all the kids your age, if I should say this, but here's the thing, is that, so when I was on the bench in college, and there were times of I was going through the frustration and what have you. So, my best friend in college, my roommate, he grew up on a farm. So he's from Iowa, grew up on a farm. He's a big country music fan. I hated country music. I didn't want to have part of it, didn't want to listen to it. But, he had the boots and the hat and everything. And so when I was going through that rough period, he would drag me out to the country music bar that was in our college town. And that's where I would ultimately, meet my wife, was in that bar in college. And so as great as the football and all that stuff was, those were probably my greatest memories because it was my buddies that we talked about before. When I was struggling and going through stuff, it was them putting their arm around me and going, come on, life isn't just about football. Life isn't just about that one dream and that one goal that you have. We're going to go live life. And I had some great friends that would kind of grab me by the arm, throw me in the truck and say, we're going to go learn the line dance and we're going to go listen to some country music and we're going to go hang out. And those were probably my best memories because it was really just about, building some friendships and having some people around me that, which is what life is all about. It's about having the right people around you and building relationships. And so, really had nothing to do with football, but had to do with just, I think like every stage, right? Whether you're old or young, high school, college, whatever, it's about the relationships that you build. And so those to me were some of my greatest memories from college.
So you mentioned you were signed by the Green Bay Packers, but you were cut. So obviously you weren't in the situation that was ideal. But I read you took the chance to go back to college and become a graduate assistant coach. How much do you think coaching helped your skills develop at quarterback?
Well, I mean, I think, to me, life is about becoming well-rounded as well. And so I think when you're a player, it's so easy to only see life from one perspective, right? And I think when you take on a role of coaching, and it's kind of similar to, when you're a child and then you become a parent, right? You only see it from your perspective. And anything that can allow you and give you the opportunity to see life from a different perspective, I just think, gives us the ability to be able to see things from in a different way. And I think, going back to college and, coaching in that perspective and being around things when I wasn't a player helped to give me, some maturity, some understanding that I didn't have before. And I think it was really important, once again, in my development to be able to learn how to communicate with people, because that becomes a skill that, that supersedes anything that we do in life. Once again, whether you're a young person, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a parent or a child, whether you're, a quarterback or a coach, communication becomes so key. And the ability to be able to connect with different people in different ways. And that to me is what coaching is all about, is that not everybody's going to see things the way that you see them, right? And so you have to be able to take a bunch of people and go, okay, I need to share the same message with everybody, but they don't all take it the same way, or they're not all motivated the same way, or understand the game the same way. So the ability to be able to take that message and shape it around different people would become vital for me, because that to me is what a locker room is all about. That's what a household is all about. As I just told you guys earlier about my 7 kids and how different they are, is I had to develop a understanding and relationships with each person and understand what made them tick, how they were motivated, how I could connect with them. And then I would have to shape my message to them. And so that became a vital skill that I think, pays dividends anywhere and everywhere, but it would pay huge dividends for me both in my career and in my personal life.
So before you were heading to St. Louis, you were in Arena League. Tell me a little bit about your time there and how you think it affected your play in the NFL.
Well, there's a couple things there with the Arena League. First and foremost, there came that period in time when, as I was chasing my dream, that it became so focused on, accomplish your dream, accomplish your dream, accomplish your dream. You would be on TV and people wearing your jerseys, and it became so singular focused on simply accomplishing the dream, that there was a time when I lost sight of why I played the game, why I really loved the game. And arena football really brought me back to that aspect of things, because in arena football, as I'm sure you've heard the stories from Dad. Um, that you weren't paid a lot of money. The situations that you were in terms of housing and the amenities that you have are nothing like what you have in the NFL. We stayed in an apartment complex where it seemed like every other day they were on the news because something bad happened in our apartment complex. The furniture that I had in my apartment came from a local Holiday Inn that had been flooded a couple years before, so everything was mismatched, everything was falling apart. And that's kind of the conditions that we lived in. And there's one side that goes, oh my gosh, how did I find myself here? Why am I playing arena football? But the other side of it was a bunch of guys that just loved to play the game of football. That it wasn't about the money and it wasn't about the fame and it didn't matter where we lived. It was all about, we love this game and we want to play it as long as we possibly could. So my time in arena football, first and foremost, just brought me back to why I'm doing this, why I started chasing this dream in the first place, and just put a ball in my hands. That was all I wanted, going from a grocery store and sitting on the bench and all that stuff. It was like, and I just want to play the game. And then I would get the ball in my hands and it would be like I was at home again, or I was comfortable again. And it reminded me of really what was important about chasing this dream to play football. So that was, really what it did for me from a mindset standpoint off the field. And then on the field, we always have that conversation, especially as my career would keep going. Everybody would ask me, okay, how did arena football help you in the NFL? And, we kind of always have that conversation about what came first, the chicken or the egg. Like in arena football, it's all about the speed of the game and having to be accurate and having to make quick decisions and all of that stuff. And so I don't know if arena football taught me that stuff or if those were the things that I was really good at anyways. And now playing arena football just sharpened those skills. But either way, there's no question that the Arena Football League helped me to define who I was. And it would be those same things that I honed in arena football that would become my greatest strengths in the NFL. And so it was invaluable to me for so many reasons. We talked about sitting on the bench for 4 years in college. And then when I went to Green Bay, the quarterback there at the time, it was just starting to take over Green Bay, was Brett Favre. And, it's a funny story that from the moment I was cut by the Green Bay Packers until the moment I retired from the NFL. So that entire time, from 1994 until 2009, Brett Favre did not miss a single start in the National Football League. So had I even made the team with the Packers, I would have never played a down of football. I would have never seen the field because Brett Favre played every single game, never missed a game. And so by getting cut, I ended up playing arena football for 3 years, and I played a year over in Europe. And so I played more football in that 3-year period of time than any backup in the history of football played, and probably more than most starters played. And so for a guy that hadn't played a lot of football, it was so valuable for me to play football, to be out on a field and experience all those different situations that I had never experienced before. On top of that, arena football was all about, throwing the football every snap, right? You're supposed to score 70 points in every game. So it was a perfect training ground for me to, grow my game, to learn how to play, to experience things that I didn't get a chance to experience because of my college career. And so it was so valuable to me, both on and off the field, both mentally and physically, to play those 3 years of arena football before I got my second opportunity in the NFL.
So eventually, after arena football, St. Louis did come calling. What were your emotions like, knowing that you get another chance to come and play in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, it was a long time coming, and how it worked out was that I ended up going and playing in Europe for a year, and so the coach of the team in Europe actually called me and said, I really like what you've done in arena football. Will you come play for me in Europe? And I told him, I'll only come play for you if you can get me signed by an NFL team so I can get another opportunity, because I had a pretty good gig in arena football and was doing well, and I didn't want to give that up unless I knew I was going to get another opportunity. So he actually called me in 1996, and he called a bunch of NFL teams, and nobody was interested. So he called me back and said, I can't get you a tryout. And so I told him no in 1996. That same coach called me back in 1997 for some reason, and he asked me to come play for him again. And I told him the same thing again. I'm like, if you can get me signed by an NFL team, I'll go play for you. So as the story goes, he called, 12 different NFL teams, and everyone said they weren't interested. And then he called the St. Louis Rams. And ironically enough, he had an office in the St. Louis Rams facility because he worked with them for Europe, in Europe. And so he got me a tryout with the Rams. I had the worst tryout of my entire life with the Rams. I remember calling my wife after I left and said, I just blew my last opportunity. There's no way they're going to sign me because I was terrible. And sure enough, 3 days later, they called me and asked if I would, sign with them, give me a contract. And so I know the whole thing was really just as a favor to that coach that, that was asking me to come play for him. But I didn't care why. All I wanted was an opportunity to get in camp. And so when they signed me, I couldn't have been more excited, because, after going through it one time and getting released, and now at this stage, I was 27 years old. And so it seemed like every year as I was playing arena football, my wife and my family would kind of look at me like, okay, when are we letting go of this dream? Like, at what point do you believe that they're not going to call you when you're 26, 27, 20? I mean, at what stage? And so I knew it was getting close to that point where it would be really hard to get an opportunity as a 28-year-old rookie in the NFL. And so when I did sign with the Rams, I mean, I couldn't have been more excited to just have that opportunity, and really thought, I know this is going to be the last one. I got to put my best foot forward in hopes that I can make the team and show them what I can do.
Now, when Trent Green went down in that game, did everything you've been through flash before your eyes as you took the field as a starter?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it did. When maybe not that game because Trent went down with the injury and I went right in, and I really didn't know the extent of his injury at that time. And so, initially it was just kind of like, okay, I'm the backup, I'll go play, and then we'll figure everything out. And then when I found out from Trent that he was done for the season, that was when, everything kind of, I think both good and bad, right? I mean, the first part is like, man, look at everything that I've been through. And now I'm going to actually get a chance to start in the NFL. And then the other side was, oh my gosh, I am going to get one opportunity. If I don't succeed that first Sunday, I am never going to get a chance to play in the NFL again. So all the emotions were going there, but it was really more just, I just wanted to play ball. And I knew that I could play at a high level. See, one of the things is like, we're talking and we're going through this whole journey. And you guys notice that most of the questions you're asking me are like, well, you didn't get to play in college, and then you got cut, and then you worked in a grocery store, and then you had to play in all these other leagues. And so a lot of people, when they look at my story, that's what they look at. They're like, oh my gosh, it's so incredible that, you went from really being no good at anything to winning a Super Bowl and winning the MVP. And when I look back at those situations, I look at the 1 year that I played in college and how I was the player of the year in our conference. And then I played 3 years in arena football, and I was the best quarterback in the league. And we went to the championship 2 out of the 3 years that I played. And then I went to Europe and was the best quarterback. And so all I saw was every time I got to play, I was successful. And so when everybody else saw, oh, this is a guy that came from stocking shelves in a grocery store, and now we're going to throw him into the NFL, they didn't realize what I had accomplished on the field. So when I actually got my chance to start, that was my mindset is, oh, I'm going to succeed. I am going to play well. I'm not worried about, not being able to play, even though it's, the NFL and it's the highest level and it's the greatest players. I had always been successful when I got between the lines. As I told you guys earlier, the hardest part was just getting the opportunity. And now I was getting that opportunity. And so I was extremely excited. There was obviously some nervousness there, like I said, because, I knew it was, one shot and I was done. But I was fully confident when I got there that, I wasn't the guy that was stocking shelves or got cut, that I was a good player that was going to play well once I got between the lines.
From what we've heard, you've had one of your first coaches in the NFL, Mike Martz. You had a lot of tough love with him. How did you really endure that, especially as a rookie?
Yeah. Well, that was hard because I didn't really understand it. That you would go through practice and, and all you would do is get yelled at. And there were even times where you thought, well, that wasn't that bad. Or there'd be times in meetings where Trent, who when he was starting, he would do something and then I would do almost the exact same thing on a similar play. And I'd get yelled at for it and, he'd get rewarded for it. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? What's the deal here? I'm not really that bad. And that wasn't that big a deal. But I remember I would call my wife and go, man, I don't think I'm very good. Like every day, all I do is get yelled at by the coach. And I can't figure out why. And, I even remember when I actually took over starting. And so like 3 or 4 weeks into that season, and I was playing really well. And we sat down for a group interview, and it was, Marshall and Isaac and Tori and the great group of guys that I had. And the interviewer asked them, like, did you guys know that Kurt was going to be, this good when he got in there? And all of them kind of looked at each other and they said, no, we thought Kurt was awful because every day, all we saw was him getting yelled at in practice. Every time we went into a meeting, Kurt was getting yelled at by the coach. And so we're all thinking, oh my gosh, Trent can't go down because this guy's awful. I mean, he only gets yelled at. And so nobody had any idea. And I didn't really understand why it was going on, as well, like I told you guys earlier. But it was ironic that, so once Trent went down and got injured and we knew that, I was going to be taken over as a starter, Mike Martz called me into his room, into his office. And he said, Kurt, I just want you to know that all this stuff and, that I've been riding on you and yelling at you and all this, that all stops right now. I just want you to know the reason I was doing that was because here's this guy that will never get a chance to play in a regular season game. We have no idea really what you're capable of because we've never seen you play at this level. So my goal was to continually put as much pressure on you in every situation that I could just to see how you handled it, right? And it's never going to be, Ray Lewis hitting you in a big game in your first start or playing in it's never going to be that kind of pressure. But what I was doing was going, okay, how in practice today can I put as much pressure on Kurt as possible just to see how he handles it, just to see if, what we can come to expect, kind of that idea of practice, right? I want to see what we can expect from you if you have to go into a game and play. And so it was amazing how, that went on every day during training camp for weeks and weeks. And then it came to that point and it's like, that's done. It's over. That, we're not doing that anymore. And so never again did I really have that kind of, coaching from Mike Martz, but that was really his goal behind it was I had just got to push Kurt in every way possible just to see, what we have here and if we can expect him to be a good quarterback if we need it.
So like you mentioned, you did have elite talent with Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce. How did you build your relationships with those players so fast to create the greatest game on turf?
Well, I mean, the thing is that those guys fit perfectly with what I did. So I was a player that was really built on anticipation. So, if you tell me we're going to run, a 10-yard stop route, I could go back and let the ball go, before my receiver turned around and hit him at 10 yards. So for us with the greatest show on turf, we became known for what we call the big end. So it was like an 18 to 20 yard in route, and we would throw it every game over and over again. We were great at it. But, for me, it was about anticipation. Oh, it's 7 steps, quick hitch, let the ball go, and this is where you're going to throw it. That was easy for me. And then you put Isaac and Torrey into the mix, who were two guys that were built around route running. And they were guys that were always going to be in the right spot at the right time. You knew, we would do things in practice where I would close my eyes and we would throw different routes because they were so good at running routes and so efficient with what they did that they were going to be in the same place every single time. And so not only were they unbelievably talented, but what they did and what their strengths were meshed with what my strengths were. And that's why it was so easy because, I didn't have to worry about, either Isaac or Tori. If you told me we were throwing an 18-yard in, I was going to throw an 18-yard in, and I was going to trust them to be there when they were supposed to be there, and they were there every time. So life became really, really easy for me because that's what I did. You could tell me what to do. Those guys would mesh to it, and that's why we clicked so quickly and we had so much success early because those guys were just pros at what they did. They were very similar in how they played the game. And once again, it meshed to what we were trying to do offensively, but also what I did really, really well as a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is sort of a cheesy thing to say, but there is no I in team, right? So you got to rely on your teammates for sure.
No doubt about it. And that, that becomes a key factor, all through things. I was very fortunate, when I got with the Greatest Show on Turf that I was surrounded by talent. But you quickly realized, when that team kind of dissipated and I would go other places, that was rare, right? That doesn't happen very often where you get that much talent together in one place. And so it does become important to go, okay, I've got to trust. And I tell my young son this all the time. We haven't had great offensive lines. I had times when I didn't have great offensive lines. I tell him all the time is that in a team sport or a game or when you're, in a group and you're on a team, it becomes important to trust people even when they give you no reason to trust them. Right? That to me is what team is all about. Is that I got 5 guys in front of me. If I start worrying about them and looking at them and seeing whether they're doing their job, I will never do my job well. So I've got to go back and go, I got to trust them to do what they're supposed to do. Isaac and Tori, I'm going to trust them to be at 18 yards when I let this ball go. And if they're not, maybe I hit the safety in the numbers with the ball. But I'm going to trust them to do their job, and they've got to trust me to do my job. And that's the only way that we could be successful as a team. But you're exactly right. Something that I learned very early on, and something that I try to pass on, to the kids that I coach now, or even to my kids, or whatever situation I'm in. It is important to know what our strengths are and to trust everybody else to do their job as well.
That's funny bringing up doing your job because that's one of my dad's favorite things to tell me, whether it be about school, doing chores or everything. He always is like, do your job. Always.
Right.
So it's funny how you brought that up. Your first year as a starter, you got to go to the Super Bowl, face off against the Titans, one of my personal favorite Super Bowls and arguably one of the greatest Super Bowls ever. What was the experience like for you?
Well, I mean, it was such a whirlwind of a year for me. I mean, to go from where I was not expecting to play to everything that had happened that year and all the success that we had and then going through the playoffs and winning that, I really didn't get a chance to really step back and I don't want to say enjoy it because I enjoyed it, but really step back and put it all into perspective, what had happened in that period of time. And so, the moment that I remember is after we won the NFC Championship game. And don't count this as cheesy. You might have to cut this out of your podcast. But in the house that my wife and I lived in St. Louis, and again, we didn't put this there. It was built this way. So I want all your listeners to know that. But in our bedroom, there was a mirror above our bed. Okay, so there was a mirror up above our bed. And so we had won the NFC Championship game, and I was completely exhausted by everything that had gone down and all the interviews and everything. And I remember my wife and I just collapsing in our bed. And, I was so tired that I didn't even turn and look at my wife. I just looked at her through the mirror, on our ceiling. And I just said, we're going to the Super Bowl. Like it was the first moment where that all kind of came into play. And we had a chance to kind of take that deep breath and really look back to what we had accomplished that year. And I'll never forget that moment because it was like, this is really happening. Like we are really going to the Super Bowl. All the stuff that we've been through, because you guys, I'm sure don't know, but my wife has been through some stuff too, where my stuff has been through football. She's really had a challenging life and some trials that she's been through. And so both of us, kind of bringing all of our stuff together and together taking this run and being in the Super Bowl, it was kind of the first moment where it all kind of sunk in like, this is really happening. Our dreams are really starting to come come true. And the coolest thing is that we got to do it together, that she was with me through all of that, and we got to do it together. So that was the first moment where it all really sunk in, what we had accomplished and the fact that I was going to be playing in the Super Bowl that I had dreamed about for years. And then as you go through the process of the Super Bowl, the other moment that I remember is I remember, right before we ran out of the tunnel getting introduced, myself, Coach Vermeil, Isaac, and Marshall kind of huddled up and just, kind of that moment of like, all of us together, that this was what it's really about. It's about the relationships and about a bunch of guys coming together with one dream. But, as you talked about before, it's not about us as individuals. It was about a group of guys and leaders coming together and leading a team to this moment. So I remember that huddle, and then I remember having my name called and running out, into the stadium. And, it's kind of like you see on TV, all the flash bulbs that went off. It was like dark in there when they announced us, and you run out and all these flash bulbs start to go off, and you start to realize, all right, this is that moment. This is that moment that you'll never forget, that will be etched in history. And I've got a chance to be a part of that and be a part of something special and have a chance to write my name in the history books. And so those are the two moments that I still recall from that season, where it really sunk in, the meaning of what that game and that experience and really the journey was all about.
And then amazingly enough, towards the end of the game, you threw that game-winning touchdown to Isaac Bruce. I'm guessing the adrenaline just took over in that moment for sure, right?
Well, that's, again, you have so many different things that, when I was dreaming about it, when I was, 7, 8, 9 years old, you dream that it's going to play out a certain way. Now, as we've talked about, right, my journey didn't play out like I had dreamed of it in any way, shape, or form. But right before I went on the field and threw that pass, Coach Vermeil kind of pulled me aside, and, he said to me, he goes, okay, you've played this moment out in your front yard a million times. So anybody that's an athlete understands that, right? I would go out after, watching the Super Bowl. My brother and I would play the Super Bowl in our front yard. And of course, I would always throw the touchdown pass to win the Super Bowl every single year. But you played it out in your mind that, man, I want to be in this moment, and I want to throw the game-winning pass to win the Super Bowl at some point in my career. And so he grabbed me and said, hey, you've played this a million times. Now go make it happen. Now go do it for real. And so it was one of those moments where, you were anxious, you were nervous, the adrenaline was pumping, but here it was. This is what it was all about. There couldn't have been a more perfect ending to the way that season played out than to have the ball in my hands with 2 minutes to go and hopefully lead my team down to win the Super Bowl. And, fortunate for me, I didn't have to get real nervous because it happened on the first play. First play out there, threw it. Isaac made the adjustment, got himself into the end zone. And so from that standpoint, it was pretty easy. I didn't have to make many plays. I just had to throw one up there, and Isaac did the rest. But it was a special moment because everybody wants that opportunity when you're a young guy, when you're a young quarterback. You want to be able to say, hey, I threw the game-winning pass in the last 2 minutes of the Super Bowl to give us a Super Bowl championship.
After the game, you were also awarded Super Bowl MVP. What was that honor like for you?
It's funny that, we're, in sports, we get these, these trophies and these things that, kind of, put up on our mantle, and for people to come in and kind of ooh and ah over, and kind of remind us of what we've accomplished. And, I often say when I look at those trophies now, it doesn't really, remind me so much of what I've accomplished, but each one of them represents something to me that's special. And so the Super Bowl MVP to me really represents that, the one thing, and again, I don't want to say the one thing, but one of the things I would always want, the people around me, my teammates, to say about me, when they were done playing with me was, in the biggest moments, we could always count on him to play his best football. Like if there was one thing, I don't care about the regular season, but if I was in a big moment, I wanted to play my best. I wanted my teammates to know that I was going to give them the best that I had. And so to me, that's what the Super Bowl MVP trophy represented. Not that I was the best player in that game, because there was a bunch of great players in that game, and there was a bunch of great performances in that game. But what it represents to me is that my teammates got the best of me at the biggest moment that we had together. And I always want to try to be that person that when people need to count on me, that they can count on me. They can count on me to bring the best of what I've got to whatever situation. And so whenever I look at that now, that's what it represents to me. And what it reminds me of is that, hey, always be that guy, right? Always be prepared to be your best when everybody else needs you to be your best, so they can count on that at any moment. And so that to me is what I think of when I think of the Super Bowl MVP.
So you commentate now, and you are around a lot of football. Who have you seen recently that's capable of duplicating what you have accomplished?
Wow. I mean, there's so many great players out there, and it's fun to watch. And I think the coolest thing for me is knowing that I've had a different journey. I'm always looking at guys that have had a little different journey and weren't necessarily the number one pick, but have found a way, to write their own story anyways. And so, again, that doesn't mean I don't love, watching the Peyton Mannings and those guys play and accomplish the things that they accomplish. But I love, watching what Tom Brady has accomplished, to be considered, the greatest quarterback that's ever played our game. But he was a 6th-round draft pick, got passed over by a lot of people. A lot of people, thought he would, never have a chance to accomplish anything. And to watch what he's done and how he's really, established himself and, defined our position. Russell Wilson's another guy, a 3rd-round pick, a short guy that wasn't supposed to be able to play. And now to watch what he does. And, the other thing that I've come to appreciate too is that there's different ways to be great. That I played the game a certain way. And I think for a long time, the only way I could really see the position was through the eyes of how I played the position. So if you're going to be great, we got to play it kind of like I did, because that's the best way to play. And then you find a guy like Russell Wilson who doesn't play like that. He runs around and he makes crazy plays, and sometimes it doesn't even seem like he really knows what he's doing, and then he just out of nowhere makes these phenomenal plays that nobody else can make. And you come to appreciate greatness in different ways. And and that's kind of what I love about the game is there's so many great stories similar to mine. There's other guys that have had to play under that expectation and that pressure every day of their life, and they're still able to accomplish great things. And there's guys that show you can be great different ways, that it doesn't have to be one certain mold. Like there's not just one way to be a great leader or to be a great quarterback or to be a great coach. There's different ways to do it, and you come to appreciate all of those things. And then, you circle it around the game that I love and the game that I'm passionate about. And I feel like I've had a pretty charmed life, even though we sit here and talk about how many things seem to go against me. To be able to play as much as I did, now to be able to cover the game and cover these stories and cover these other guys that are trying to do some of the things that I did, I just consider myself really, really blessed.
You brought up commentating. Do you think it's weird at all this year? Because I know Joe Buck a few days ago came out and said it's so weird announcing without the fans in the stadium.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Because a big part of going to the games and you love the game, but it's the energy that comes with it. That I do this stuff in studio and I love the stuff I do in studio, but it's just not the same. It's not the same as being at the stadium, going out on the field and feeling the energy of the fans and all of that. And so we were just talking about that because I do the commentating for radio now on Monday nights, and we were just talking about how it's so different. And it's hard to get as engaged as you normally do because you're not commentating over the fans or you're not hearing them go nuts when a great play is made and some of that stuff. So it definitely is very, very unique this year. And you can even tell, I've been to some stadiums that will have 5,000, 17,000 people. And you can even tell just, when you look out at the stadium, it looks like it's empty. But just that number of fans brings up the energy tremendously and changes the complexion of how you call a game and I'm sure how you play a game, just having, a few people in the stands. So I'm hoping, at some point in the near future, we can get back to that because it definitely changes the complexion of calling a game and I'm sure playing a game, without our fans in the stands.
You were obviously awarded Super Bowl MVP after the Super Bowl, and then you also were awarded MVP twice. Does it ever feel different getting the MVP the second time? I've always wondered that.
I don't know if it feels different, but I do think there is something special about it because, you know, as with so many things in life, that I don't want to say, everybody wins an MVP, but a lot of people, do great things and accomplish great things. But I think, one sign of sustained greatness is to be able to accomplish those things numerous times. And so I think that was the special thing about, getting the award a second time because, when I got there and had my first season, a lot of people are like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, okay, you had a great season, but can he do it again? Can he continually play at that level and sustain that level of greatness? And so I think that's what was special about the second one was just, okay, now nobody can ever just say, well, he had one great year or he did it, one time at a really high level. You know, very few guys get an opportunity to, go to multiple Super Bowls or win multiple MVPs. And so I think it's just one of those things that really it sets you apart from even the other great players in your sport because it is so rare. And I think that's what was so special about it.
So since you have been to the Super Bowl multiple times, how would you describe the emotional difference between your second two and then your first one?
Well, are you talking before the game or are you talking after the game? Because obviously I only won my first one. So the emotions after the other two were quite different than the first one. But accomplishing what you accomplished and understanding, the first season that I got to the Super Bowl, it almost seemed easy, and it's never easy. So I don't ever want to play it off like it was easy what we accomplished. But just everything just seemed to come together, and it was just one of those special magical seasons. Um, and then you realize after that how hard it is to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, how many players have played their entire careers, great players, and have never been to a Super Bowl or have been to one Super Bowl in their career. And so you realize how hard it is after the first one. And so the second one, emotionally, you understand how special those moments are, because after the first one, the first year, you kind of think to yourself, oh my gosh, this is pretty easy. I'm going to be in the Super Bowl every year. This isn't, no big deal. And then you realize, okay, it's not that easy. And so the second one, you're excited to be there. And every year you get back, you understand, what goes into that. And you really appreciate that moment. And then the emotions at the end of the game. Obviously, winning the Super Bowl is unlike anything that you can explain in your sport. But losing it is, at least losing the first one was about as crushing as so losing my second Super Bowl was about as crushing as the winning the first one was exciting because you know that you're not going to get these opportunities very often. And to feel like you missed an opportunity to make history and to do something unique, it's hard. And in that second Super Bowl, I felt like our team didn't play our best either. And that's the other part that's really emotional about it is like, I just talked about the Super Bowl MVP, wanting to play your best on the biggest stage. And then when your team doesn't do that on the biggest stage, it sticks with you. It emotionally affects you like, gosh, I mean, if we'd have played our best and lost, you can deal with that because you just tip your hat to the other team and go, hey, they were just better than us, but we played really well. When you don't play your best, it's really hard to deal with that and to deal with the emotions. And it really grabs you in a way that it's hard to kind of get out from under. I often say that I probably have thought about the Super Bowl loss, the first one, more than I thought about the Super Bowl win because it had that kind of an impact on me, just getting that far and then not playing our best. And that was early in my career, so that was, first year starting and third year starting. And then my last Super Bowl, I had a completely different perspective. I was more mature. I had a better understanding because, again, we talked about some of the challenges before I got to the NFL. Then there were some challenges in the NFL, getting cut and benched by some other teams. Then getting to Arizona where, where nobody expected me to ever really play football again or play at that level. Nobody ever expected the Cardinals to ever be in the Super Bowl. They'd gone 50 years and played in one playoff game or won one playoff game. So nobody expected that. So when we got back with Arizona, that was a different kind of emotion. It was an emotion of, all of this stuff that people said we couldn't do. Now we have accomplished this. It was the emotion of watching my team because, the majority of my team, nobody in my organization had ever been to the Super Bowl. So the emotions of watching everybody else go to the Super Bowl for the first time was probably the most special part of it. Outside the game, it was so much fun to watch, guys get on the plane and, get off the plane and, go to the stadium and see pictures of themselves on the stadium, to see the crowds that came out to send us off to the Super. I mean, watching that through the eyes of everyone else was really, really special. And then to be there, and at that time we were the underdogs. We weren't supposed to be there. We were never going to have a chance to win that game. And so to go through that game and, with 2.5 minutes left, again, I got a chance to throw a touchdown pass with 2.5 minutes to go. And everybody on the sidelines like, oh my gosh, we just won the Super Bowl. And, I think for the first time and the only time in the history of football, there were people saying the Arizona Cardinals are going to win the Super Bowl. Like, all these things. And so the emotions were pretty incredible just to know that we were there, that I was back there, that our team was in the Super Bowl, that with 2 minutes to go, we had shown the whole world that we belonged and that we were good enough to win the Super Bowl. Now, we didn't end up winning it because of some great plays by some other great players. But I think when that game was over, it was kind of like a perfect bookend on my career. Even though I would play one more year, it was kind of like we started with this magical season of going to the Super Bowl. And out of nowhere, nobody expected it, and he was able to go and win the Super Bowl. And then here I am at the end of my career after all these other trials that happened. And once again, everybody's saying, okay, he can't go to the Super Bowl. This team can never go to the Super Bowl. It's not going to happen. And then to kind of finish my career in the Super Bowl, even though we didn't win it, was pretty special and emotional. And I also think, there's a part to it that, and again, I don't ever want to sit here and say I'm glad we lost the Super Bowl. But I think there's always a message in everything. And to me, there was a message in that fact that we didn't win the Super Bowl, but we won, right? Our team exceeded all expectations. My career exceeded all expectations. I was doing something that nobody ever expected me to do again. And so, to all the people that are listening, that too often we spend our time looking at a score on the scoreboard. And we think that winning and losing is determined by, do we have more points than the other team? And I just think, it taught me in life that sometimes you win when you don't have more points on the scoreboard. And that's sometimes how life works out, that you can still be successful and you can still be a winner regardless of how many points you put out there at the end of the day. And so, that's kind of how my career finished. And I was able to kind of take that and run with it and believe that, hey, it doesn't matter. I did lose a couple Super Bowls on the scoreboard, but just being able to accomplish what I did and be in the places that I was and have the experiences that I had, because that to me is what the Super Bowl is all about, is having an experience that is so unique and different, and being able to appreciate that no matter what it looks like at the end of the day, is what's most important in life. And, those are really the emotions that kind of encircled, those experiences that I had.
You got to go up against Bill Belichick and the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And Bill, being the defensive mind that he is, in the first half only held you guys to a field goal. So when you guys are getting shut down defensively or the defense is giving you guys trouble, what is your biggest piece of advice on how to adjust?
Well, I mean, I don't know about how, but I think what you're saying is that you have to have the ability to adjust. And once again, that's what life is all about. Everything we've talked about for this last hour has been about the ability to adjust, right? From the time I was young, I had this dream, and this is how it's going to play out. And it couldn't have been more different than I had dreamed it or thought it was going to play out. And my whole career became about adjusting. And, when this happens, what are you going to do when that happens? How are you going to respond to that? Because how you respond to that is everything. And And I think, when you take a sport and you take a game, you can learn so many life lessons from it. And that's exactly, what happened in that game. We had struggles early and we couldn't figure it out early. We made some adjustments. We came back, and once again, all my Super Bowls seem to come down to this. In the last minute 20, we scored to tie the game. So the game's tied at the end. So we make the adjustments and, we tie the game up late and we get the momentum back to our side. And then it fell into Tom Brady's hands, right? Tom Brady, when he was starting to be Tom Brady, okay, now what are you going to do? You lost all the momentum. You don't have a lead now. What are you going to do? They made the adjustments. They worked their way down. They kick a field goal with no time on the clock, and they win the Super Bowl. But life is about adjustments. Life is about when the unexpected happens, what are you going to do and how are you going to respond? And so that would just be my encouragement to everybody is that it is not always going to be perfect. It is not always going to play out like you want it to play out. If you're going to accomplish what you want to accomplish or even greater things, you're going to have the ability to adjust. And you're going to have to see those things and welcome those challenges instead of looking at it and going, oh my gosh, why is this happening to me? You got to look at it and go, okay, this is what's happening to me. How do I attack it? How do I meet this challenge? And how do I become better at my craft or as an individual through it?
During your time in the league, you got to go up against some amazing quarterbacks. Who was someone that you just absolutely loved to go up against?
That's a great question. I'd love to go up against all of them. I mean, quite honestly, we always talk and, the politically correct thing to always say is, well, I'm not playing against the quarterback on the other sideline. I'm playing against the defense and blah, blah, blah. What I know is that every time you played against a great quarterback, you knew who the great quarterback was on the other sideline. And you knew that you wanted to outperform that quarterback on that given day. You wanted to prove to everybody on this stage, I'm better than that guy. And it just made it fun. I mean, that's what it's all about is you want to compare yourself against the greats. And you want to play against them. And you want to prove that you're better than that guy. And that doesn't mean you do it every single time you play against those guys, but you welcomed those opportunities. And so it didn't really matter. Early in my career, I played against Steve Young. And, he was a guy I'm thinking, man, this guy is awesome. This guy's one of the greatest to ever play. I want to put my skills up against him and see how I measure up. We talked about Tom Brady. I played against Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. So we lost that game. We should have won that game. But now I'm going to look back and say, hey, I lost one of my Super Bowls to the greatest quarterback that ever played. So you can't look at too far down on me because that happened. But there's so many. I mean, Peyton Manning, the second to last game of my career was kind of the opposite. So I played Tom Brady in his first Super Bowl where I was kind of the older guy and he was the younger guy. And my second to last game, I played against Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. And he was the young guy and I was the older guy that was finishing my career. And I had one of the greatest games of my entire career against Aaron Rodgers. And, so it's those kinds of things that you look back on now and you see how great Aaron is. And you loved those moments to play against any of the greats and to measure yourself against the greatest that have ever played the game. So there wasn't just one. It was every time I got that opportunity, the Drew Breeses, right, the Peyton Mannings, all of those guys, you welcome those opportunities every time you got them.
Kurt, you've obviously had lots of ups and downs during your playing career that a lot of people really don't get to experience. What is the most important lesson that you've learned from all of this?
It's a great question. That's a huge question, because you learn so many things along the way. But I think one of my mottos in life and in our family has become never let your circumstances define you, because life is going to change and there's going to be times that you're on the mountaintop and there's going to be times you're in the valley. There's times that things are easy and times that things are tough. And and what I learned through that entire journey is that I was never going to let those things dictate who I was going to be, that I wanted to carry myself a certain way. I wanted to live with a certain kind of character. I wanted to live without reproach and carry myself in a way that people could always expect me to be a certain person, no matter what I was going through, the good times and the bad times. And, I'll never forget when I, found myself benched in St. Louis after I'd won a couple MVPs and been to a couple Super Bowls. And I had a media member come over to me at the end of one of the seasons where I was on the bench, and they told me, they said, I've obviously been watching you for a number of years and saw you when you were on the Super Bowl podium, and then have watched you this year. And they said, I learned more from you this year about who you are and what life is all about, watching you go through being on the bench and the struggles, and the way that you cheered on your teammates, or you encouraged the guy that was starting in front of you. You taught me so much about who you are, and what character looks like. And I'll never forget that, because again, a lot of times we think, well, nobody's watching when I'm not on the pedestal or I'm not on the Super Bowl podium. But that let me know that people are watching everything that we do. And it becomes very important to make sure that we stay true to who we are, regardless of the situation that we're in. And so I think that was one of the greatest lessons I learned through all the ups and downs, and in terms in the journey and the road that I went on, was that I never ever again want to allow my circumstance to define who I am. I want people to know, regardless, good or bad, that I'm going to be the same person, and they can count on me to be that person in each and every situation.
Okay. Thank you, Kurt, for your time. Obviously, it was a lot. An hour it's been the longest podcast we've done. So we thank you a lot for sticking on. It obviously means a lot to me. Makayla, obviously you too, I would assume. So thank you for coming on today. To our viewers, thank you for watching.